Well, building meaningful relationships in the middle of a pandemic can be difficult, but it's not impossible.
It is not impossible. John is standing by with an elopement expert who knows a thing or two about maintaining connections.
Guys, when I told my wife that I'd be doing this interview today, she said, that's what we should have done.
Aw.
The wedding can be such a pain, and
Yeah.
you know what? Sam Stams is joining us, and Stan, I guess I have a hard time narrowing down your job title. You're a photographer who takes photographs of people who elope and go to exotic locations and adventure. So I'm just going to call you an elopement expert because you've been around a lot of people who have done this. It's wildly interesting to me. What is something? Have you noticed something that's a thread that connects these couples that do this?
Yeah, so I'm an adventure elopement photographer, and the cool thing about all of my couples and couples who have done this elopement experience is that they all want something a little bit different for their elopement day or their wedding day. And they realize that they don't really want to go by societal expectations and norms for their wedding, and that's not really who they are. And so they've thrown all that out and started from scratch and created an intentional day that represents them, and I happen to serve those couples who love the outdoors and want to go on an adventure for their wedding day.
So what relationship advice have you learned from them? Because these seem like people that are very much committed.
Yeah, so oh my goodness, there's so much. So with these couples, I've really learned that communication and being clear on what you want out of your wedding, your relationship, all those things are so important, because if two people aren't on the same page with their wedding or their marriage, there's going to be communication breakdown. And with this, we've realized, these couples have realized that, hey, we want the same thing. Let's do it.
So your book is called Elope Your Life, a guide to living your life authentically and unapologetically, starting with I do. So how does this then all apply to the rest of our lives, and not just our relationships or even just the wedding day?
Yeah, so a wedding is really a microcosm of everyday life. You're standing up to people who, you might not want to do what they're suggesting for your wedding day. There's decisions that need to be made. There's really digging deep inside yourself and growing as a person and as a couple. And so taking that empowerment and that confidence and that individuality that you need in order to elope and applying that to the rest of your life, it makes sense. And so why not do that intentionally and do things that are outside of the box, outside of your comfort zone, and really live and lead a more fulfilling life.
How has the pandemic affected the elopement business?
That's an interesting question. It's really affected it two different ways. I have two kinds of people that come to me. One are those people that are like, COVID, yes, this is the perfect excuse to do what we've always done, and we're gonna elope. And those are my kinds of people. And then there are people that really haven't thought about an elopement as an option, and they're like, I guess this is the only option we have. And I call those people Plan B elopers. And the cool thing about that is when they talk and see how exactly amazing an elopement can be, they're like, oh man, this should have been a Plan A in the first place.
Okay, so here's something that I think where you might be able to help a lot of people, which is, how do we tell our parents we are not going to be having the traditional wedding that they have envisioned?
Yeah, so I deal with that a lot. And I have found the best way, and the most surprising way, and thing about this is the best way to do it is to be very kind and explain your wishes and how this really represents you as a person, you two as a couple, and be sympathetic to, people understandably are going to be bummed, but ultimately don't make it a question. Don't make it a request for permission. This is what you guys are doing. And I've done a poll, and about 90% of people who were polled said, oh, an elopement, that's cool. I wouldn't have had all those assumed negative associations with it if someone came up to me and said they were eloping. So I think you might be surprised by the response.
Okay, quickly before we go, etiquette question. Do you put out a registry for gifts if you elope?
I think that's up to you. You can elope your wedding, elope your registry on top of eloping your life. So do what you want to do.
Okay, again, the book is called Elope Your Life, a guide to living your life authentically and unapologetically, starting with I do. Where can people get it?
samstarns.com or elopeyourlife.com. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and more.
All right, Sam, thank you so much. That is some good advice there. Because here's the thing about a wedding. You learn you have to deal with your family in ways you haven't had to before.
Yeah.
And they can become annoying.
Yeah. And then there's some family members that might have pitched in to help pay for it, and then they have some other demands that you're like, ooh.
Yes.
Comes in with the money.
Yeah.
Vegas.